Good evening. I am Kimberly Coleman, pronoun she and hers, president of the Beta Kappa chapter of Beta Phi Omega Sorority Incorporated. Beta Phi Omega Sorority is one of the oldest LGBTQ plus sororities, founded as an organization that did not discriminate against women because of their ethnic background or sexual orientation. We were founded on the campus of Florida A&M University and are celebrating 20 years of sisterhood and service. You can find out more about our prestigious organization by visiting www.betaphiomega.org. With a passion for voting instilled in me by my parents, I have the honor and privilege this evening to again call together three diverse and phenomenal women in the LGBTQ community to discuss the important topic of exactly how to vote with pride in the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, affectionately known as the DMV, during the upcoming presidential election. For those of you joining us outside the DMV, stay with us, as much of the information is universal and you can easily apply it to where you live. Again, I'll be your moderator tonight for our virtual panel that is here to inform you with the latest information on how to register to vote, deadlines, which are literally around the corner, how to create your voting plan, and so much more. As the president of the Beta Kappa chapter of Beta Phi Omega Sorority Incorporated, our chapter serves DC, suburban Maryland, including Prince George's, Anne Arundel, Charles, and Montgomery counties, as well as Northern Virginia. We support our community in a variety of ways, including hosting a Black lesbian support group, which meets virtually on the third Sunday of every month at 1 p.m. in partnership with the DC Center for the LGBTQ community, where we chit-chat, reflect, and network in a safe space. I live with my beautiful wife, Leah, in Maryland, and have two amazing adult sons, Anthony and Andrew. I am passionate about serving my community, especially when the opportunity to form partnerships or endeavors such as this one present themselves. And I'm a practicing Nichiren Buddhist with the Soka Gakkai International, where our goal is world peace through absolute happiness and personal transformation. I would like to again take this opportunity to thank Cherie Hughes, co-chair of the HR Greater DC Steering Committee and HRC Greater DC Political Action and Community Engagement Team, for their help taking the possibility of this panel and making a reality for you here tonight. Also, thank you, Taylor Pinckney of HRDC, for your support behind the scenes of this series of events. We are bringing back our amazing panel again tonight. First joining me in this conversation is my soror from Beta Phi Omega Sorority, LaToy Williams, pronoun she and her, who serves her community in many aspects. Hey, LaToy.
Hey, sis.
Good to see you. LaToy is the Director of National Programming for Beta Phi Omega Sorority Incorporated and Vice President of the Beta Lambda chapter serving the Baltimore area. LaToy is also part of the Human Rights Campaign and is currently the Baltimore Steering Committee co-chair and the executive producer of Queer Conversations, an LGBTQ plus talk show. Ms. Williams volunteers monthly with My Sister's Place Lodge, a home for women transitioning from homelessness to home stability, along with a host of other LGBTQ plus organizations such as Black Equality Baltimore, the Pride Center of Maryland, and Catholic Charities. Although her educational background is in business administration and accounting, her heart for social justice and Black LGBTQ plus people has catapulted her into the community as an advocate, educator, and activist. Welcome, Soror LaToy. Thank you for your efforts to ensure tonight's success and for joining us again this evening.
Thanks, sis. I'm happy to be here.
Good to see you. Our partners for this event are full-time staff members with the Human Rights Campaign, the largest LGBTQ advocacy group in the U.S., with a goal to ensure those of us who are trans, people of color, and HIV+ are treated as full and equal citizens within the LGBTQ rights movement across our country and around the world. To learn more about this amazing organization, visit www.hrc.org. Joining us tonight is Narissa Rahman, pronouns she and hers. Hey, Narissa. Great to see you again.
Hey,
Thanks
y'all.
for joining. Narissa is the Associate Regional Field Director for the Human Rights Campaign. Narissa most recently developed and led HRC's six-figure investment in the 2019 Virginia General Assembly elections, targeting and mobilizing thousands of voters who helped elect a pro-equality majority in the House and Senate, giving the Commonwealth a progressive trifecta for the first time in almost 3 decades.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Narissa played a key campaign role in the 2020 Virginia legislative session, where Virginia became the first in the South to pass comprehensive non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ Virginians. Prior to working at HRC, Narissa led field work in the South for 8 years for progressive candidates at the state legislature, congressional, and gubernatorial levels. Through her passion for voting registration, voting rights, and equal access to the polls, Narissa hopes to make the ballot box accessible to all. She is originally from Barbados, but was raised in Florida and has slowly been making her way up the East Coast. Narissa currently resides in Richmond, Virginia, with her partner and their 8 new houseplants, right? Is it still 8?
It might be more. Yeah, it might be 12 by now.
Green thumb all the way. Maybe I can get one from you a little different than I don't know. We'll see. I need lessons. Narissa, welcome back. Thank you so much for all your hard work towards equality and joining our amazing panel tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so great to be with y'all again.
Thank you. We are also joined by Hope Jackson, who is an experienced advocate and campaign manager. Hey, Hope, great to see you. Who serves as HRC's Deputy Campaign Director, managing legislative and electoral efforts across the Southern, Midwest, and Mountain West states. She is responsible for the long-term strategic planning and implementation of HRC's organizing efforts, strengthening HRC's partnerships and coalitions nationwide. Prior to joining HRC, Hope was an employment, labor, and bankruptcy attorney. And while not practicing, Hope's commitment to social justice fuels the work she does every day in the fight for LGBTQ plus equality. Hope, thanks for taking time out of what is surely a very busy season again to join us for edition 2 of Vote with Pride.
This is the fun part. Thanks for having me again.
It's our pleasure. So thank you so much. Ladies, your vast wealth of experience, passion, and knowledge is sure to continue to inspire, engage, and inform our joint audiences on this critical discussion on Decision Day 2020. We are 28 days, I think, away. 28 days away from Election Day. We are just less than 2 hours away from the one and only vice presidential debate. So, don't worry, folks. We're going to wrap up in plenty of time for you to join your watch parties and check out the debate to inform your vote. And to the community joining us live tonight from home, we really encourage you to share this on your pages, start a watch party, as many of your friends and family as possible to get this critical information. They need this information, and we're days away literally from voter registration deadlines here in the DMV and also around the country. So because of our collaboration tonight, we're streaming live on the Beta Kappa and the Beta Lambda chapter Facebook pages and HRC Greater DC Facebook pages. So, and as well on our Beta Kappa chapter YouTube page. So from wherever you're joining us, please comment. If you have a question, put it in the chat. We should be able to see it. We will answer as many of them as we can. Okay, so let's get started. As we discussed on our first edition of How to Vote with Pride, making sure that you're registered is a critical first step to make sure that your vote gets counted. So Taylor has so graciously shared a slide for the viewers at home. Latoy, can you explain this to us? What are the deadlines? Because they're coming up, right, for the DMV with voter registration?
Absolutely. Thank you for that information, Kim. So, and thank you, Taylor, for, putting this up for us. So the deadlines to register in DC is October 12th. That is literally 5 days from now. And then we have DC, Maryland, and Virginia, October 13th, which is about 6 days away. So if you have not registered, now is the time to do so. You still have plenty of time. I know it seems like it's right around the corner, but if you go to www.vote.org, you can literally register in 2 minutes. It's very simple. They really made the process streamlined. So now is the time to do it.
And I think Taylor has another graphic that's going to even give you a clue as to what it's going to look like when you go to vote.org.
Yes.
And you go to register to vote. It's very simple and easy.
Yeah. So when you first go to the website, there's a few different links on there. It has a space for you to check your current registration to see if you are already registered so that you can see what information you have. And then there's a link for you to register to vote. Once you click on that, there's a few spaces to put in your name, your address, phone number, email address, and then it will automatically take you to your particular municipality, your state. Now, you do have the option to complete it online at that time, or you can download the form and sign it and mail it in. Like I said, it is very streamlined. If you have a state identification, if you have your 4 digits of your social security number, you can go through the process and do everything online and have your voter's registration card mailed to you. It's really, really simple.
Okay, so if I'm not registered to vote, now is the time, right, to check it out. And so Taylor's showing us another graphic here for DC. LaToya, you mentioned downloading a form.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what I mentioned before, this is through the vote.org website. Now you also have the capability of printing out the form and mailing it in to Washington, D.C. So the form is a little different. Whereas with Maryland and Virginia, you can do everything online. With D.C., you would need to download the form, complete it, and then you can either email it back, but of course you have to scan it and email it, or you can mail it.
Okay, got it. So for Maryland, Virginia, it's all completely online. Couple clicks, I'm done. For DC, it can still be online, but I have to go through this email process and send the form.
Right. Yeah.
And another key piece on this is even if you are registered to vote, check out your voter registration. Make sure it's correct. Do that now before the deadlines cut off. Okay, so that's another key point to remember. All right, so thanks, LaToya. Thanks for going through that again today. Don't delay, right?
Right.
Vote, check your registration right away. All right.
Yes.
So, Narissa, I have a question for you. For those in our community who might now go by a different name than maybe when they first registered, what do they need to do to ensure that they're going to be able to vote on Election Day?
Yeah, this is a great question and a really important one. Voting is a key part of our participation in society, and it's truly one of the ways we all have the opportunity to, share our voice and, share our values and our principles is at the ballot box.
Yes.
And everyone should have the right to do that, regardless of who you are and especially regardless of what your gender identity is.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have changed your name and you have updated your name, you should make sure to update your voter registration to reflect whatever name you're going by and whatever is on your identity documents. We also understand that in many states there are strict voter ID laws that require you to show ID at the poll. And that can be an obstacle for many people, depending on what your gender expression or your gender presentation may be, including, what name you might have and, a list of things. Fortunately, if you're living in the DMV area, you're not required to show a photo ID when you go and vote at the polls on Election Day, or if you're early voting in any of those states. And in fact, here in Virginia this year, with the legislative session at the beginning of the year, they actually, passed a law doing away with Virginia's photo ID law, which, expands access to the ballot box for so many people in the LGBTQ community. You do have to show some form of ID, whether it's like a utility bill or anything like that, but it does not have to have your photo ID. So, our trans and gender non-conforming and non-binary siblings who are voting this year, especially in Virginia, should have, it should be a little bit easier for you to vote this year.
That's really good to hear. I'm really glad about that, Narissa, and I'm sure having the progressive trifecta that was elected and the Virginia
helps a little bit, yeah.
Helps a little bit.
A lot of the things we're talking about tonight were not the case a year ago. So thanks to everyone who voted last year to make easier voting this year.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear it. And again, this is a nonpartisan discussion. This discussion is really focused on, helping people understand what they need to do to ensure that their vote is heard and that they can vote with pride successfully on election day. If you're just joining us, I'm Kimberly Coleman of Beta Phi Omega Sorority Incorporated, here again with the Human Rights Campaign discussing, how to vote with pride on Decision Day 2020. And what I took from Narissa's comments are, in the DMV at least, valid ID does not have to mean a photo. But if you are a person whose name has changed since, or any of your situation has changed, your address has changed, anything has changed, check your registration. Yes. And even if it hasn't changed, check it, because during our last edition, Hope told us that her registration had changed, unbeknownst to her. So it doesn't hurt. Go to vote.org today. Just verify it's all good, and and that you're covered in that respect. And
go Kimberly, ahead. If I could just chime in for a second, don't wait until the last minute to do this.
Please don't wait.
LaToya said, in some states, I think in DC we have 5 days left, Virginia 6 days left. Don't wait until the last minute. Just this week alone for Florida and Arizona, their voter registration site crashed the last day and within the last few hours.
Okay.
Fortunately, in those states, they extended the hours a little bit. I think in Arizona, they extended it by a few weeks. But don't hope that they're going to extend it if something happens in your state. Check it now. It literally takes 5 minutes.
Not even
to do. Yeah, not even
today, folks.
Yeah, and if you're not sure of that, you can usually go and do this in person. I actually went and updated my voter registration last week. And I walked into the registrar's office, filled out a form. She put it in the system for me and said I was good to go in 24 hours. So
great.
Just don't wait.
Yeah, get it in. Okay. So, and that's a great point, Narissa, the timeliness of everything and how, maxed the systems and the people involved in these processes are right now this year. So I want to bring Hope into the conversation. I've heard a lot about making a voting plan, Hope, and we talked about this in the first edition. Hopefully, viewers joining us for the second time have their voting plan. But, for viewers who are joining us for the first time, can you explain to us, what does it mean to make a voting plan, and why during this election is it so important?
Absolutely. So as Narissa said, do not wait until the last minute. The voting plan is really important for that. And it's just a mental picture. For me, it's not a mental picture. I write it down or else it doesn't get done. But just making a mental picture of how and when you're going to vote, whether your registration is up to date. So you're asking yourself all of those questions. Are you voting at 5 p.m.? Is that high traffic time? Do you have the right ID to vote? And who are you voting for? So being able to make a mental picture of all of the obstacles that could possibly get in your way when you're trying to mail your ballot, or if you're going to the polls to vote in person. And so that voting plan is going to be important, that you sit down, take a few moments, and just think through what that day is going to look like for you and pinpoint it. I like to calendar it. It's a special event for me, for my family, and we make a day of it. And so being able to get that plan together, just in case it starts pouring down raining, or your car breaks down, or you can't find a babysitter, you already have your plan in place. And you're giving yourself more than enough time to get your vote counted. And so just being able to make that plan is important, whether or not you're voting in person. Do you need hand sanitizer? Do you need snacks? It's just as simple as that. Just thinking through your plan and getting it done, and taking care of your business, because that's what it is. This is going to impact you in astronomical ways. And so I just would tell everyone, please make a plan to vote.
Absolutely. It's your voice and your vote. It really does matter. We want you to be successful in casting your vote, and there's a number of options, and we're going to get into some of what those options are. So thank you, Hope, for that. And so now that we understand the importance of a voting plan, we really want to talk about helping you, all the viewers, think about, okay, well, how are you going to do it? Let's break this down, right? What are some ways that you can effectuate your vote? So you might decide that you want to choose an absentee ballot route. Perhaps you don't want to vote in person. So if your path is that way, Narissa, what is the timeline? And Taylor's already got our graphic up here for us. Taylor is amazing. What is the timeline in the DMV anyway for requesting the absentee ballots?
Yes, a lot of folks are choosing to vote by absentee this year. I know in Virginia, it's up in the hundreds of thousands of folks who have already voted absentee. So this is an option, that a lot of folks, when they made their vote plan, they said, I want to vote by mail this year. I just want to get it in safely, especially because we're dealing with the pandemic right now. For DC, you don't need to worry about a thing. You're going to have your ballots just mailed directly to you. You do not need to do anything about requesting a ballot or filling out a form or an application to receive your ballot. So, now's the time to check your voter registration status, make sure that you're registered to vote, make sure that you have the correct mailing address on file, and everything like that. I know a lot of my colleagues and friends who live in DC have already received their ballots. Some of them have already returned them and voted. So ballots are being sent out now.
Great.
For Maryland, you can do this online or you can do it by mail. You can also print out a form and fax it in or email it in. You have until October 20th to do this.
Okay.
So that's in like less than 2 weeks, but don't wait. I think you're going to hear us say don't wait a lot tonight. Don't wait to fill out, if you're living in Maryland, don't wait to fill out an application to get your ballot. We understand that there may be some instances where the Postal Service is, experiencing higher volume of mail, both requests and, sending things back out. So, October 20th is a few weeks before the election. Really think about if you're going to wait close to that deadline, is that going to be enough time for you to receive your ballot? Same for Virginia. You can do this online or you can do it by mail as well. The deadline for that is a little bit later. It's October 23rd. Like I said, hundreds of thousands of folks have already voted in Virginia. They got their applications in way early, some back in May. Do it now and receive it. Receive it as soon as you can. So.
Great. Yep. So deadlines are coming up, and that's the thing about life. Time marches on and it catches up with us sometimes sooner than we expect it to. We're already in October and we're soon going to be in the middle of October. So, all the amazing ladies on this panel are making a really valid point tonight for the viewers. Do it today. Do it now. If you're registered, if you checked your registration, great. Request the ballot. So when you say request the ballot online, Narissa, so Taylor's showing us a graphic. Viewers go right back to vote.org is one option, right? To just go ahead and request that ballot. It sends them over. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. You can go to vote.org. Another great website is iwillvote.com / your state's abbreviation. So if you're in Virginia, iwillvote.com / VA is a great one. And it's going to, again, confirm that you're a registered voter. And if all of that information pops up, you'll be able to fill out the information for who you are and where they're going to be sending your ballot. So it's all pretty straightforward. Again, in my brain just went blank, but
in Maryland or DC? Or,
think I was going to say in Virginia, but now I don't
oh,
even remember what I was going to say.
okay.
It's Wednesday and we've only got 27 days left in the election.
Yeah.
So yeah, just don't wait. But there are great options for you to do this online, that you can do it. You know, you can also feel free to print out any of these ballots that appear online and, you know, take it in person if you're afraid of it not getting there in time. But a lot of these places, especially Maryland, you know, it gives you the option to print out a form and fax it or email it in.
Mhm. Great. And actually in Maryland, ballots have also started arriving. So I know I had requested my ballot back in September and ours arrived maybe last week here at our home. So they are here. Okay, so that brings me to another point. Thank you so much, Narissa. Now this is something that's talked about in the news quite a bit. I hear a lot about this, and we're using the term interchangeably, and that is purposeful for a reason, right? So sometimes you hear us talk about absentee, you hear us say vote by mail. Hope, please enlighten us. What is the difference?
So there is no difference. As you said, the terms are used interchangeably. Absentee ballots are using mail. Mail ballots are using mail. And so it just depends on the state, the term that they use, but it's all the same method. You're voting by mail. And so absentee ballot usually refers to an application process that someone has gone through. They can't physically be present. And so that may be called no excuse voting as well.
Okay.
And so that's another term that folks are using. But I think in short, it is the same thing. Some of it requires an application. Some states are automatically sending out absentee ballots. Some states require an excuse. And so it's really important that you know what your state requires. So whether you're voting absentee or by mail, we know it's the same thing. Just make sure you know the requirements for your state.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's the same thing.
Yes.
The same thing.
The same thing. So know the requirements for your state, because every state does not allow no excuse, right? In some states, I have to be overseas in the military, have to have medical reason. You know, there's different rules for every state. So you can go to a site like vote.org. There are other sites. Look up your state, find your rules, because there are a lot of people who are joining us outside the DMV. We recognize that. You know, we are 4 people. We can't, you know, it's hard to become experts on every single state, you know, and 3 of us live in the DMV. So, you know, that's where our area of expertise lies. But however, the information is applicable to anyone. So go to vote.org today, check out the requirements for your state, see if you are eligible to request an absentee or vote by mail ballot and proceed from there. The key is timing. Do it today. Don't delay, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Hope. Really appreciate that. So we've talked about a voting plan. If folks are thinking, okay, I do want to do absentee ballot, at least in the DMV, Latoy, what are the deadlines? Because now I have my ballot in Maryland, but there's some, oh no, not deadlines. I'm sorry. How do they do it? How do they fill out their ballot? You know, what do I do with it? I haven't even opened mine yet, in all honesty.
So the key to all of this is receiving it. And once you receive it, open it. And then you want to thoroughly read your ballot and elect those officials that you are supporting in this particular election. After you complete it, make sure that you're completing it in blue or black ink.
Okay.
That's very important. Sign your ballot. Now, you would also need to sign the ballot on the outside. So, and I think that some folks are finding this out after they've already sent it in. So be mindful that you should sign your ballot on the inside of the envelope, sign the outside of the envelope. There is no stamp required. There are some drop-off boxes. You can put it in the mail, but that's how you return your ballot. Now, the good part about UDC residents is that you should already have it. If not, you should be having it any day now. So go ahead, review the ballot thoroughly. And this is a good opportunity for you to understand and to see that the president is not the only person that's on this ballot, right? You should become very aware of what's going on in your community, in your area, what bills are being presented, what new laws are going through, what other officials are running for office. This is a time to do your research so that you can return your ballot timely. I think one of the biggest things that I took away from our previous live was request it early, receive it early, and return it early. Those three R's. Thank you, Narissa. That has been ringing in my head since then. Those three R's: request it early, receive it early, and return it early.
Absolutely, LaToya. Those are really great points. And I really like the one about reading the entire ballot, because yes, it's a presidential election, but there's a number of other key positions, as well as referendums and all types of decisions on the ballot. I know in Maryland, there's two different I see signs, vote yes on 2. And I thought, I need to research what is 2. I don't
Exactly. What is number 2? Yeah.
To whether I know if I want to vote yes or no. So I like that. Do your research, request it early, receive it early, return it early. That's key.
Yeah. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention, and we talked about this earlier in our briefing, was that there's a spot on the Virginia ballot that has your signature has to be witnessed. Am I correct? And one of the things that Narissa pointed out to us is that it does not have to be witnessed, and that's only for this election. Normally, you would be required to have someone witness that it is you signing your ballot. Narissa, do you want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, in Virginia, when you're voting by mail or voting with an absentee ballot, you have your ballot that you're going to put in the inside envelope, and then you're going to put it into the outer envelope that it's going to be mailed in, and on the back of that, it's going to ask that you sign that this is you and you filled out your ballot, and it's also going to ask for a witness signature. And that's basically, the Board of Elections way of saying it, and your way of saying, hey, someone watched me, Narissa Rahman, fill out my ballot, and I'm sending it back in, and this is my witness. This year we're in a pandemic, and one of the best things we can do to stay healthy and stop the spread is by social distancing and not being around other people, staying home, not letting anyone in our home, not going to anyone's home. And, for some folks who live alone, regardless of who you are, if maybe you're a college student or just someone living on their own, or someone who, might be a senior citizen and living alone, asking someone to get a witness can really, put them in a situation where they're going to break social distancing protocol. It can really put, them at risk or their neighbors at risk. So, understanding that there's a pandemic right now, that witness signature is not required. They are not going to, if Board of Elections and your local registrar receives your ballot and there's not a witness signature on it, they're not going to turn away your ballot or not count it because of that. They understand the situation we're in. The Attorney General fought for this to make sure that folks didn't have to turn it in. So if you have someone who can sign it for you, great. But if you don't, don't worry about it. Your ballot's not going to be rejected because you weren't able to get it signed by a witness.
Yeah. And one of the other good things about Virginia as well, and we talked about this earlier, is that if there are any errors on your ballot that you've mailed in, the registrar's office is required to contact you so that you can cure whatever error by November 6th, which is 3 days after the election. So look out for those phone calls. I know for me, I don't usually answer numbers that I don't know, but I will this election. It's important because it could be something as simple as you misspelled your name, or, well, that wouldn't make sense, but anything could happen. Maybe they can't understand your handwriting. So you have an opportunity to fix it, and they are required to contact you.
Great point. Lots of great points. I really appreciate it. And like we said, the latest information, it's changing so rapidly. Some of these developments are since we did the first live just a couple of weeks ago. And that's why, thank you all so much for committing to come back and enlighten viewers and share the latest information. Super helpful. So speaking of vote by mail, so we have a number of different things going on right now. Lots of different conditions. We're in the age of a global pandemic, right? In the United States, unfortunately, it's taken over 210,000 lives, and counting. And that has been a disproportionate number of lives in the Black and the Brown community, making us some of the hardest hit, unfortunately. So I'm sure that our viewers, on the one hand, are concerned about COVID-19. We're talking about Virginia saying, look, we don't want people to have to get a witness and risk their health and their safety. So we're going to forgo this, okay? On the other hand, we have, in the news cycle, public figures saying, well, vote by mail is fraudulent. Or your vote won't count. So there's a lot of different things going on here that people are having to navigate and figure out what to do. So as they try to figure out how to make sure that their vote is counted. So I want to bring back Hope to help us and help the viewers understand what does make vote by mail safe, and how can viewers know that if they choose that option for themselves, how do they know?
Yeah, absolutely. So millions of voters have voted by mail before.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So yeah, I was saying that millions of voters have voted by mail before the 2020 election year. I think COVID is allowing many more Americans to vote by mail, and so it's been safe for years. And incidents of actual fraud have been so insignificant, not enough to sway an entire election. The Brennan Center, the Pew Research Center, everyone has done research into claims of voter fraud, and they're just not real, other than clerical errors, and they're traceable to what has happened with a Secretary of State's office or the local board of elections. And so it's not anyone out there really impersonating voters and trying to cast a vote on your behalf. That's just not happening. And so again, it's insignificant in terms of the rate at which we do have cases of voter fraud. If anything, folks can definitely track their ballot. So most states have a tracking system where you can go in and you can put in your information, track your ballot to make sure it's been received, track whether or not you have any flags on your ballot. Do you need to cure a signature or anything else? And so there are ways for you to check in on this. And if nothing more, you can always call your local election office and say, hey, I don't know if my ballot has been checked. Has it been received? Does my ballot count? And so you can always call and ask those questions. And if you have additional questions, they will answer you and tell you all the things you need to know about your ballot. But voter fraud is not happening in droves as folks are saying it is. It's just not. Yeah.
All right. So the key takeaway that I heard is voter fraud is not widespread.
No.
It's nothing that's going to sway an election or determine the outcome of an election. And for any individual who chooses to vote by mail or vote absentee, you can actually track your ballot. And that's a great point, Hope. I appreciate that you did some research on that topic for us. Because there's a lot of swirling in the news right now. And I think part of the purpose is, maybe to make folks tune out, or folks feel like, it's just too much, my vote's not going to count. And the reality of it is your vote absolutely will count, and you can make sure that it counts. And the way that you can do it, if you choose to vote by mail or absentee, is through ballot tracking. And we actually want to cover that. So Narissa, can you talk to voters in the DMV about how they can track their ballots?
Yeah, definitely. So if you live in Virginia, and you especially live in Northern Virginia, like Arlington or Loudoun County, this is you all have had this tracking system in place for a while now. You've always been able to track your ballots if that's how you've chosen to vote. But a new rule recently makes ballot tracking actually a statewide requirement. So all Virginia absentee ballots that you receive in the mail are going to have what they call an intelligent mail barcode. That is something the United States Postal Service will use, and this is going to allow not only you to track your ballot as it's arriving to you, so from your registrar's office to your home, but also it's going to allow you to track your ballot once you've filled it out and once you've sent it back in. So it's great. My partner actually decided she was going to vote by mail this year, and we tracked her ballot all the way through. We were out of town when it arrived, and we were so excited to like get home and see it. And it was really cool to know that it was like there. It's a whole new thing. Instead of tracking your Amazon packages, you can track your ballots now. It's a new thing that everyone's doing. Maryland has a similar tool, a voter look tool, that you can check the status of your absentee or even your provisional ballots on the State Board of Elections webpage. And I should have mentioned Virginia actually has a new tool now on the registrar's page and the Board of Elections page, where you can just put in your name, your address, and it'll track if it's your ballot's being sent out and when you've sent it back. So you can track it in Virginia, you can track it in Maryland, and then in DC, you all are receiving your ballots. Everyone's receiving a ballot, and it will also have barcode information on there that will help you track it.
Great. Okay, awesome. So there's lots of options. And again, if you're joining us outside of the DMV, you likely have a method to track your ballot in your local jurisdiction. You'll just want to visit your local Board of Elections website to inquire about your options there to track your absentee or / mail-in ballot. It's all the same. Remember that point. Okay, so all right. So thank you, Narissa. Really appreciate that. So we've talked a lot. Let's review, folks. Voting plan. If it includes absentee, you've got a number of ways how to fill out that absentee ballot. You've got ways to track that ballot. We know that there's no widespread voter election fraud. Vote by mail is safe to do. All right. So, and maybe you want to vote absentee, but you don't want to mail it in. There are some options, right, LaToy?
Yes, there are.
Okay. Can you explain to us?
There are a few. So, of course, there's the traditional, drop it in the mailbox. But I do know that across DC and Maryland and Virginia, there are locations where you can go to a Dropbox location and drop your ballot into the box. And you have up until the election day to do that, and your vote will be counted. There are lock boxes. They're set up all over. You can see them. You can actually go to your Board of Elections website, or you can go to vote.org, and it'll outline the locations of where you can go.
Okay.
Now, you can also hand deliver the ballot. You can go to your local Board of Elections early, as a matter of fact, to the office and physically walk in and give it to somebody so that you know that it's received. You can be comfortable with knowing that it's received. Wear your mask, bring your hand sanitizer, and vote early.
Absolutely. So there's lots of options. So even if you don't want to do the absentee, but you maybe want to avoid some of the long lines and just, prepare in Virginia, you can go vote tomorrow. Early voting started September 18th. So It's open, it's available for you. Maryland.
Yeah, and that's actually what I did on Monday. I went and voted early in person, in and out in 5 minutes. It was
That's
so
wonderful.
easy. There weren't any lines for me. My partner dropped off her ballot at the drop box. I was at the location, and I walked in, got my ballot, filled it out, turned it in. Fine. They had hand sanitizers everywhere. Everyone was only allowed to use one pen each. So it was great. You got options.
Yeah, and early voting begins in DC on October 27th, and it begins in Maryland on October 28th. So you have some time to prepare. You can mail it, you can take it to the Dropbox, you can take it to the location, or you can go to your precinct location and vote early. Just please check, because some places have closed because of the pandemic. They're not opening, they're not accepting people to come in, especially since a lot of schools are closed now due to the pandemic. So definitely go to your Board of Elections website and check to see where your closest polling location is, and that's open.
That's a great point. Okay, thanks, LaToy. So there's a lot of options. Make your plan. Like Hope said, literally do some planning. Think about, how do you want to vote? Voting is personal. What are you comfortable with, and what is the best way for you and your family to carry it out to ensure that your vote is heard? And while we're talking about polls, this is going to get us into a little bit of a preview of our next live. We actually are doing a third one. So Hope, in recent days, I've heard about poll watchers. And it's quite upsetting, and other forms of modern day voter suppression or intimidation. So, and in fact, our next live is going to cover this more specifically on how to educate viewers and prepare viewers, for those who want to vote in person. But for the purposes of this conversation, what if someone is challenged about documents at the polls by actual poll workers, people that are legitimately there? Will they still be allowed to vote? What should they do?
Absolutely. You will be allowed to vote. Please do not leave. You can ask for a provisional ballot, and a provisional ballot is only when you get those when your eligibility has been questioned, whether or not you can actually vote in this election. And so you can always ask for a provisional ballot. If that does not work, you can always look for an attorney, a volunteer attorney, to help you request a provisional ballot. And so your vote will still be counted. But the one thing I will just note here is that this is going to require you to do additional follow-up. So you need to reach out to your local election board to ask them, what are the steps that I need to take to cure my ballot? You can also ask while you're on site. So if you're at the polling location and they say, hey, we don't think you're eligible, request your provisional ballot, and then ask the question, what are the instructions for me to follow up? Because you want to make sure you get counted. And so that may be something as simple as going to your local election board and saying, here's a picture ID, here's my passport, or here's my utility bill. And so making sure that you follow up, because that's what's going to determine whether or not your ballot actually counts.
Yeah.
Great. Those are great points, Hope. And for all of you that are joining us either midstream or right now, we're going to cover this vote in person in more detail in a future live, but it's critical. And, what I'm hearing from Hope is there's follow-up to be done. So if I vote absentee, there's follow-up. I need to track my ballot, make sure it got counted. If I vote provisional in person, there's follow-up. I need to make sure it got cured and make sure that it gets counted. So we really want to dive into that a little bit deeper for everyone and really inform you on how to do that and what to do. Great. Okay. So last question. We're getting a little bit over time, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So, but this is a critical question because of timing. So if people want to get involved between now and election day, Narissa, like maybe they want to be a poll worker, maybe they want a phone bank, what should they do? How do they get involved?
Yeah, there are so many options this year, and you can do it. You can do a lot of things for many different states, no matter where you are, all from the comfort of your own home, mostly, which is great. You can phone bank in your pajamas if you'd like. But there's a lot of things to do. I think the first thing that anyone can do if you want to get involved is start, organizing and mobilizing your friends and family. Latoya shared some of those voter registration dates with you earlier. I shared some of those absentee ballot request dates earlier. Text and call your friends and family to see if they've registered to vote or check their status, if they've requested their ballot, or, like Hope said, help them come up with a vote plan. That's going to be crucial in getting them from thinking about voting to actually voting, whether it's on or before election day. As Hope and I do this work for a living, and we know that the conversations that folks have with friends and family, people are like 15% more likely to take action if it's coming from someone they know and they trust and they care about. So, you even just saying, I'm going to organize my entire contact list in my phone book, or my Facebook friends, or my Twitter friends, or on Instagram, that's going to go a long way. If you're like, I still want to do more, we're experiencing right now, in the middle of early voting, unprecedented turnout, whether that's in terms of folks early voting or folks choosing to vote by mail during early voting. We understand that for many folks, you may not be able to vote until election day. And we know that we're going to need as many poll workers and poll observers as possible to just make sure that everyone's having a good experience and that they're able, to get in and out without any obstacles or issues. I know in some cases, if you sign up to be a poll worker, you might get paid for the day, paid for your work. You'll receive things like PPE to help, protect yourself because you will be around people. I know at HRC, we are partnering with Power the Polls to recruit as many poll watchers as possible, especially LGBTQ poll watchers. We know that the turnout for LGBTQ voters this year is going to be a huge deciding factor, and we just know that our community turns out to vote at record numbers. So if you go to powerthepolls.org/HRC Foundation, you can find some more information about how you can be a poll watcher or poll observer in your area if you're able to do that on election day. There are also a lot of things you can do phone banking, and it doesn't have to be necessarily for a candidate, in support of a candidate. It can be nonpartisan in nature. You can help make sure that folks are receiving their ballots if they've returning their ballots, helping them get that information. A lot of groups are not following up with folks who have requested ballots to make sure that they're actually receiving them. Yeah. And they're not following up with folks who have received ballots to make sure that they're returning them. I know a lot of the calls that we're making with HRC, and we have phone banking pretty much every night of the week, we are following up with folks to make sure that they're all set. But I think really, I highly encourage you to have these conversations with your friends and family in your life. They want to hear from you. They want to hear from someone that they trust, that, you're going out to vote this year, why you're going out to vote this year, how you're going to go vote this year. All of that information, sharing that story and your experience is going to go a long way. And when you're done voting and doing all of that, tell them how it went. Tell them like, hey, this was actually super easy, or I requested my ballot and I got it and I returned it. Those are the things that are going to, this is how we help, calm some anxieties about voting by mail or voting early or in person during a pandemic. Like, we need to be sharing our stories. So share your stories about how you voted, post about it on your social media of you dropping your ballot off at a ballot box or voting early in person. Like, do all of that. We have to spread the word, but it's the difference is going to come, and it's going to start by talking to the friends and the family that we know that we need to get to the polls this year.
Great. That's amazing. So I heard so many different calls to action. Folks, we have a lot of different calls to action for you tonight. So, check your registration, right? Check your registration. Request your absentee ballot. Make your voting plan. Request your absentee ballot if your voting plan includes that. We've got the 3 R's: request it early, receive it early, return it early. Okay. Then share it with your friends and family. Voting is personal. Check on those closest to you. How are they voting? Do they have their plan? If they need information, share this live with them. Share vote.org with them. Find a way to get them the information that they need and share your story with them. Also, join us again October 28th. We're going to be 5 days out at that point from Decision Day 2020. We're going to cover voting, how to file a provisional ballot if necessary in more detail. We went over it briefly tonight. What to do if the polls close when you're in line, all those types of very critical things. So join us again, share that on your pages and in your social media networks so that people can get this information. And I have another piece of critical information for you. Last time we talked about the census. www.my2020census.gov, and I said that it closed September 30th. Well, it's been extended. folks. And there's a case going on right now. I don't know how long it's going to go for. Nobody really knows. But the reality of it is if you haven't filled out your census, it's critical to do so. The census determines critical funding, but it also determines how many electoral college votes your state receives, which ultimately decide the president. So, and you only get one time every 10 years to fill it out. So if you haven't done so yet, go to 2020census.gov. I went there tonight. It's still open. Fill it out. It's very quick. 10 minutes for 10 years is what we're saying now. And, it's completely, there's no cost to you. There's nothing, there's no cost. There's no fee or anything like that. But at any rate, it is critical. I think 4 in 10 households have not yet responded still. So, at any rate, and it could be taken down at any time. So I think the current situation is they're trying to end it soon. So if you haven't done that, please do so. Join us again, October 28th, 7 o'clock. Ladies, thank you so much. You've been a delight and a wealth of knowledge and information and inspiration, honestly, for all of us to get more involved in our communities, with our families. So thank you so much for joining us. Everyone have a great night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks, y'all.